We're going to call the December 16th, 2021 Scituate Zoning Board of Appeals meeting to order. And we are going to begin with our first application, where Brian O'Neill of 145 Jericho Road in Scituate requests a special permit or finding in accordance with MGL 40, Section 6, and Sections 470.6F of the Scituate zoning bylaw and any other relief that the Board of Appeals may grant to allow the raising and reconstruction of a pre-existing non-conforming single-family dwelling at 145 Jericho Road. Hi there.
Hey. Thank you. For the record, Gregory Morse, registered engineer, Morse Engineering, representing the property owner, Brian, and his wife, Melanie. As was just read into the record, we're here seeking a special permit in accordance with Section 470.6 in a Mass General Law 48, Section 6 finding regarding their property located at 145 Jericho Road. The property is in the R3 zoning district. It's also located in the floodplain and watershed protection overlay district. It's located in a FEMA flood zone at elevation 8 and 15. And that's up on the board here. You can see the exterior property line is the line shown in black. I've highlighted on the plan in brown the location of the existing house. Jericho Road is at the bottom of the page. The site itself is non-conforming with respect to lot area. This is a 3,640 square foot lot that was laid out in 1908. The home that's on the lot was constructed in 1930. It's approximately 1,594 square feet. So the non-conformities with respect to the lot are the lot frontage. The frontage is at 40 feet in the area at 3640, where 100 feet of frontage is typically required and 10,000 square feet of lot area is required. The building that sits out there is non-conforming with respect to front yard at 9.8, where 30 feet is required, and side yard on the right-hand side, which is 2.3 feet, where 8 feet is typically required. The proposal is to take the existing home down, construct a new one. I've highlighted the outline of the new home in the black line on the plan. That new home is approximately 2,820 square feet. It represents a 77% size increase. The side yard is brought into greater conformance, being proposed at a 5-foot side yard setback, where 2.3 exists today. And the front yard setback is in greater compliance, proposed at 11 feet, where 9.8 is the setback today. The existing home is non-compliant with respect to FEMA requirements. The new home would meet all of the NFIP and FEMA floodplain requirements as noted on note 12 on the plan. That's the requirement that you need for the finding under 470.6, which is your floodplain overlay district. I turn it over to you.
Sure. I feel like it's on the plan and I'm having a hard time finding it. The square footage changes?
Right here, this note.
Oh, I got one note. You got two. That's
the
okay.
old plan.
Oh, no,
I have the old plan.
yeah, we're looking at the old plan.
I have the old plan.
Sorry.
I only have the old plan.
No, you should just give up.
You just handed me the new plan.
Yeah.
That's on me. Okay, there we go. That answers that question. I heard you say it. I figured it must
I
be.
knew it was going to be asked, so I put it on.
No,
the
yeah,
revised
no,
plan.
all good. There we go.
There you go.
Yeah, it's not really a question. It feels like it's the meat and potatoes of this one is we have a very non-conforming right side setback. We have a conforming left side setback. And overall, the home is getting less non-conforming from a side setback standpoint. However, we need to note that the left side is becoming
We changed that.
They changed that.
No,
It's 8
It
foot.
conforms.
It's 8.
It's at 8.
on the new plan as
On the
well.
new plan.
Yeah, so I'm glad I
No,
prepared
that's-
based on the old plan.
No, it's okay.
So we don't even have to talk about that.
No, we don't.
Given that I don't have any questions,
Right.
I was gonna be okay with the other change, to be perfectly honest, but.
Yeah, I was
gonna be
gonna
more
talk about it.
complicated.
Yeah.
I have nothing else. The house is getting a lot bigger, but it's also getting more conforming, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Let's do it. Any questions?
I do not have any.
No.
Okay.
I have a question. I guess you can see me.
Yeah, sure.
The property-
So, sorry, hang on one second. So just for the rest of the meeting, we'll go to Bob, we'll hear from the building inspector, and then we'll turn it over to the public, but that's okay. I like the enthusiasm. And then just when we do call on the public, just your name and your address for the record.
Not a problem.
Thank you. Why don't you go ahead?
I'm the owner of 10 Middle Road. My backyard abuts his backyard. Evidently, he's going to raise and reconstruct and elevate his property. I'd like to know what his grade is and what type of paperwork he has regarding the elevation, for one. Does he have any elevation plans?
Well, we do have elevation here on this plan.
Which is?
We have 9 feet going through the front section of the home, 7 feet in the back. 6 feet is measured as we get closer to what I believe is your property to due north, to the rear. Did I do all right?
Yes.
All right.
So according to the rear setback, what is that? The current and proposed?
The current and proposed rear setback will actually be well within the building envelope, which is a 20-foot setback. The current rear setback is 25.5 feet. He's going to be taking it to 32.6 feet, but there's a little curveball there. That's not the setback from the deck. That's the setback from the home. The deck will be getting a little bit closer to the rear lot line, but still, even though it doesn't need to be, well within the required building envelope.
13 feet or greater, in other words.
20 feet or greater. Even the deck on these plans will be more than 20 feet from the rear lot line.
Correct.
And how do they address the materials, the traffic, and all the other placement of building materials to be able to build this house?
So I am very far from a contractor, but the building materials wouldn't necessarily be allowed to be stored on your property. They would certainly be allowed to be stored on his.
Well, you brought up a very interesting point, because there's some massive planter boxes that are stored on my property as we speak.
So I thought that you might get to that because those improvements are shown on the plan. That is where we delve into a private land and boundary matter, and not something. If we give an approval for the construction of this home tonight, it is by no means an endorsement of any other improvements which may or may not encroach onto your property.
Okay, but you haven't addressed conservation.
I haven't, because I am not authorized to. We're not the conservation
So in
committee.
other words, he's gonna have a permission to build, but yet we don't have the authorization from conservation and a few other places.
So I am not certain he needs Concom for this. He does. Greg is saying that's great. We can't not hear a zoning application because someone needs Concom, because then maybe Concom could say, well, you haven't gotten your zoning application yet, and then no one's allowed to build anything. So we are not approving anything other than the construction of this home in this location with respect to the zoning bylaw. Our approval doesn't negate or supersede any other approvals that may be needed. He'll need to comply with building code. It sounds like he needs to go to Concom. He may need to go somewhere else to one of the other town boards. This is zoning, and that is what we are ruling on. Specifically, with respect to this application, it's setbacks and height.
Correct, but this addresses the building of the structure, which means there's gonna be raise and reconstruction, which means there's gonna be other abutters that are gonna be affected by it,
Yes.
obviously. So that's what my problem is.
Right, so it sounds like, well, you having a problem with the construction is part what we're here to talk about, and we can talk about your problems as they relate to the zoning code. If you have Conservation Commission concerns, those are to be raised with them, because that is not what we are here discussing or ruling on this
You
evening.
can't build without the permission of the conservation.
And if that's the case with this application, I'm certain he will go before conservation and they will discuss that thoroughly.
And if they don't accept the proposal, then obviously a waste of time.
Well, you know what? I tend to think that this is important. You are entitled to your own opinion.
Trust me, I've been with conservation several times personally.
Sure.
So I understand how it works.
Sir, I am sure you're going to take up your Conservation Commission concerns in front of the Conservation Commission, and I encourage you to do that.
Okay, so what is the lot size on this particular property?
The lot size can be readily viewed on the plan, and I imagine you are familiar with it, given that you live next door. The lot area is 3,640 square feet.
So you'd say it's under .08.
It's under .0 acres, you just said? .0?
Yeah, because of all the lots in the area, with the exception of 3, which is the corner lot of Jericho and Turner, I'm sorry, Jericho and Otis, and then the one beside it, which is 4 Middle Road, and then mine, which is also 10 Middle Road, have approximately .23 acre.
So you're implying that this lot is significantly smaller than the other lots in the neighborhood?
All throughout the whole section is .0.
Sure, that sounds like it's accurate.
Okay, so then if we're doing a size comparison to the ratio to the lots.
So that's an important distinction. We're not. There is no requirement that lots be similarly sized to other lots. This lot is undersized under our code, but it also predates the imposition of the code. Therefore, it is what we call pre-existing non-conforming.
Correct. But what I'm saying is that the lot is undersized, then why would you overbuild a structure?
Overbuild is what I like to call a judgment word, and we are discussing tonight whether or not this construction is substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood. There are certainly other homes in Scituate that are this size, that are on lots this small. And we're looking at an application, as we just discussed, which has a home which is within 2.3 feet of a lot line, which no one loves. The building department, the fire department, the people that live close to the lot line, and the neighbors. And we're going to address some of that. 5 feet and 8 feet still pretty close, but it's a lot further away than 2.3. You feel that the proposed house is too large?
I don't know. I don't know the size of the house. You said 1,500 square feet?
No, we're taking the new home to 2,820 square feet. It's going to be 3 stories tall.
3 stories?
Yes, which is allowed under the code again.
Why couldn't I have mine built at 40 feet elevation and 3 stories?
Sir, I don't think it will come to a surprise to you that I did not review your prior application in preparation for this one. I honestly couldn't comment on that.
Well, there's a discrepancy there. You look it up.
I honestly can't comment on that one.
The height of this is under what's required. There is no square footage limitation in Scituate for the size of the house. And as far as the setbacks, it is becoming less non-conforming, so it is an improvement. And that's how we're looking at this.
Now, I do want to hear you out. If you have a feeling that you can try to explain to us that the proposed home is more detrimental to the surrounding neighborhood, is worse for the neighborhood than what is currently there, I want to make sure we hear you out on that point, but I haven't heard that point yet.
No, because we haven't gotten to the fundamentals and the basics yet.
Okay, so also we have a meeting and we have some other applications to get to, so I would like to encourage you to get to that part as quickly as possible.
Okay, so basically, we have a fence, and I have maps here from Morris Engineering, by the way.
Great.
But anyways, that's a fact.
Sir, let's get right to the part where you feel that this is more detrimental to the surrounding neighborhood.
If you let me finish.
Please.
I have 2 resource maps that specifically shows that to build around this fence and this property, because currently right now, you're probably about a foot away from the street on the frontage, more or less. Let's say 5 feet, if at all. Second of all, If you go to the back, obviously there's no room to build or to be able to work, because obviously he had to put his planters, these are massive structures on my property as we speak, before building even began.
Sir, I'm sorry, I don't understand the point you're trying to make. Are you trying to state that there's no room to build this home on this lot without encroaching on your land?
Absolutely. I was told by the police department that he thinks that the fence to his property and my property are actually inaccurate. Morse Engineering could verify that that's not true.
Okay, it looks like there's a fence that encroaches onto your land, a shed, and some landscaping. None of that has anything to do with the home that they wish to build. So, again, this is by no means an endorsement of any encroachments that exist on your land. The only thing we would be approving tonight is the location of the proposed home, which does not encroach on your land and is going to get further away from your neighbors at 149 Jericho Road. Yes.
I'm not 149, I'm 10 Meadow Road.
I understand.
So I don't know who 149 is.
You should probably meet them. They're great folks.
I can only imagine.
Yes. All right, thank you. Bob, are we missing anything?
No, I just, I wanted to just make a general statement that the gatekeeper on this entire exercise is our office. A building permit doesn't get issued without Conservation Commission sign-off, without ZBA sign-off, without meeting FEMA and Mass Code regulations. So this isn't going to happen unless all of those boxes are checked.
Right.
And, there's no surprise to that. That's just the way every project proceeds.
Yes. This being one of the boxes that absolutely needs to get checked,
Yes.
and so they are here. And one box being checked doesn't necessarily have any bearing on whether the other happens or doesn't happen. There is certain overlap in certain instances. There are certain things that Conservation Commission or even the Planning Board looks at that have almost nothing to do with what we review in an application. Sometimes there is overlap. There's a lot of variables in that regard. Does anyone else from the public have any questions or comments on the proposed reconstruction at 145 Jericho? No. Okay. Do you have anything else to add, sir?
I fight for now.
Okay. This is sort of,
But actually, let me ask you a question.
please.
Let's say that it gets approved. What is the survival rate, generally speaking, on your percentage of other properties that go through the system that get approved, completely approved? You know that?
I don't have statistics on what people plan to build and when they get completely approved through all the boards. No, I could guess at ours, but, and then those will be fluctuating because some folks will in advance try to prepare an application that's more likely to get approved. Some people do their research. All right, thank you. Do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve. How do I word this?
That's
Make a motion to approve
fine.
The proposed
the
home.
proposed home at 145 Jericho Road
On the raise and reconstruct.
on the raise and reconstruct.
Is shown on the plan.
As shown on the plan, dated, I gotta get the other plan.
Go ahead.
Dated 12/16/21.
Yep.
And prepared by Morse
And
Engineering.
prepared by Morse Engineering.
And that the board find that the proposed home
And that the board find that the proposed home,
I'm I'm gonna help you. This is good.
Nope.
Does not create any new nonconformities,
Does not create any new nonconformities.
and to the extent it intensifies any existing nonconformities, such intensification is not substantially more detrimental to the surrounding neighborhood.
Yes.
I appreciate you getting after it. Folks, he is a new
Newest
member of the
member.
board. I've been doing this for like 9 years. And I was more of a chicken and I just waited longer until I started making motions.
Second.
I need that written out.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And we had a gentleman, another attorney who was on the board, who was fantastic and a huge asset and a wonderful guy, who was a stickler for how we worded them, and he would admit that. And we were better for it.
Yeah.
But he was serious about how we worded them.
Now, you'd be horrified at my meetings then, because I'm like, motion.
Yeah,
Move,
and
move.
and that's probably how I would have been if it wasn't for Frank. All right.
Second application.
Second application. I'll do this one. I owe you another one. I'll bang out two at once. Okay. For a second application brought by Richard Clauser and Martha Campbell of 520 Franklin Street in State College, Pennsylvania. Probably not big Buckeyes fans. Requesting a special permit finding in accordance with MGL 40A Section 6 and Sections 810.2 and 470.6F, 1.2 and 3 of the Scituate zoning bylaw, and any other relief that the Board of Appeals may grant to allow the construction and addition of a pre-existing non-conforming single-family dwelling at 162 Jericho Road in Scituate.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. For the record, my name is Paul Marabito, Wilson Engineering Company, representing the owner of the applicant, Richard Clauser and Martha Campbell. The applicant's showing a lot on Jericho Road with two dwellings on them. It's a 162 dwelling on 162 Jericho Road, if you show on the plot plan. The subject of this application was to expand the dwelling closest to Jericho Road. That same structure was recently elevated onto concrete piers to make it conform to the FEMA construction and elevation requirements under the 2016 map. What we're seeking is to expand the footprint as shown on the plan. The building would be 7.5 feet wider at the rear, and that line would run parallel with the existing building. The right-hand setback is proposed is 22 feet, which is more than the 8 feet proposed. The left-hand side is currently 1.2 and 1.6 feet. The front of the building would be 1.7 feet in from the property line, which is slightly less non-conforming than the existing structure. They're proposing to put a second floor on the structure, and in doing so, the gross floor area would be increased by 320% over and above what's there at the present time. Additionally, we're also asking for a special permit to allow a substantial improvement in the floodplain and watershed protection district, over 25%. The site is relatively flat. The front yard setback, the existing is 15.4. The proposed for the structure is 11.2. It's less than the existing because that's the front of the house would have a proposed deck with a balcony above it. There wouldn't be a roof on it. Therefore, it's not considered a structure. It would be considered a deck under the zoning bylaw. The lot contains 5,426 square feet in a zone that requires lots to be 10,000 square feet. The lot width is 44.72 feet as opposed to the 100 feet required. There's no changes proposed to the rear building. I submitted pictures with the application that shows the existing building post-construction from the improvements that I mentioned a few moments ago. The house is serviced by town sewer and town water. There's no changes to those utilities. Again, the purpose of this is to add the addition and also add a second floor to the structure as well. The proposed work would also conform to the FEMA construction requirements in that it would have to be on piers. Assuming the zoning board were to grant this application, our next step would be to file an application with the Conservation Commission. Because we are in a FEMA flood zone, that would trigger that application as well. I think with that, I'll end and answer any questions you may have.
So, Paul, how far are we from Jericho Road to the covered structure? Right, the 11.2, you said, is to the deck.
Yes.
On the, so are we not changing it to the covered structure? Is it the same
That's right.
15?
The plan shows 15.4.
Yep.
That's the existing covered structure.
Right. That will not change.
That's correct.
Okay, that's what I wanted clarification.
We also looked at the average setback, but that doesn't work.
Okay.
So that front balcony and deck would not be able to have a roof on it.
And what's the setback to the new drip edge out to the west?
To the west,
Yeah, so the proposed open deck and stairs, it looks like that might still be within the 30 feet, yeah?
yes. Yeah, the existing structure is 1.6 feet, and the proposed is 1.7.
No,
So, sorry.
no.
These-
So from Jericho Road, right, where you have the proposed open deck and stairs,
Yes,
that second floor, if you will, the addition, is going to go out to that setback. What's that distance?
I think this is our measured setback here on the rest of the home.
yeah, that's an open deck and stairs there.
Yeah, but I feel like
Right,
this is a drip edge here, yes?
Yes, that's the roof line.
Right.
Covered
And
roof.
in eyeballing it, it looks like that's gonna be about 27 feet, 26 feet?
Yes.
Okay. All right. And then the driveway, how are we,
The driveway's on the right-hand side.
so the driveway's on the right-hand side, but the right-hand side is going to shrink given the deck. And are these properties in common ownership?
Yes,
They are, both the front and the back?
yes.
I got you.
Right.
Okay.
All right.
They're the owners are, from the knowledge that I've had of them over the past probably 10 to 12 years,
Yeah.
they're there in the summertime. They live in Pennsylvania.
Yeah. Okay. And it's a single property now with 2 dwellings on it, but Bob, help me here. The code doesn't prevent someone with a property like this from turning it into a condo, right? I don't think it can.
That's more, the code doesn't. There may be law that would speak to that,
I don't believe there is.
okay?
My concern
Condo's
is,
only a form of sale.
what's that?
I said a condominium is only a form of sale. If he wanted to sell each structure as a condo, he could do it.
Yep.
It's, nothing would change on the lot or the structure. It's
No,
it's simply the form of sale.
I understand that, but we would, access would be trouble with the deck getting
If it's
bigger
split,
and whatnot.
But it becomes a condo association problem, not a
Well, it becomes an us problem to the extent that we have a property that's too close to the street.
Right.
And it's not as much of a concern for me right now because they have to get along with their parking and the fact that this is gonna pinch the driveway to the back one and where the front one's gonna put their cars and not make them in the street. And it's just something to think about. You see where I'm going?
Yeah,
But this is within the envelope, which is on the plan.
well,
What else?
that's the existing dwelling, right?
That's the existing building.
So,
On a, yeah. You're smelling what I'm stepping in a little bit.
yeah, it's,
So Paul, where we're going with this is different from our last application. We have an undersized lot, just like we had on the last application. We have two homes on the lot here. And the last application, we weren't too close to the street. This one, we're too close to the street. We're gonna make the home that's too close to the street bigger in a manner in which it doesn't become more non-conforming, I would agree. Thereby, and being bigger on the lot, while we don't have lot coverage, I feel like we do need to consider access to the rear home here, given all of this, and given the possibility that the ownership of these homes could be divided. Still 22 feet. That's still a lot.
off the proposed
If that
division.
was, if that was 8,
That's a problem.
that would be different.
Okay.
So, something I wanted to talk out, but 22 feet is still a lot.
I mean, ever since they've had that structure, they have been renting it out. And they've never had an issue with the parking. They've always managed to work that out.
Sure, well, and, right, but my point is, we're taking up, what are we taking up?
Access.
We're
Another
taking up 7
7
feet by 30 feet.
Right.
We're taking up 210 square feet of parking area with the new
Yours,
structures.
You're bumping the building out 7.5 feet in the back. There is an existing bump out there.
Yep,
It's probably 2.5 feet wide, so
sure,
it's about 5 feet out from that existing bump out.
yep. No, I follow you.
I mean, there, look,
Something to
if you,
consider.
if you look at the other, right, if you look at the other home.
Yep.
Right, I mean, that's basically all the joint parking period, there's nothing, it is what it is, right?
Yep.
Nobody's gonna get any closer to the.
But there's
that
still
house.
22 feet.
But there's still 22 feet.
We're taking this to, sorry, what's the square footage of the new, of 162?
The existing is 420, the proposed is 1320. 320% increase.
Right. And we have a first floor. And what's the square footage of the rear home? Do you know? You might not know, and I understand if you don't.
Let me see if it's on the. I don't know what that.
Oh, it might be on the card, right?
5,000 square feet?
Is it? No, that's a lot.
Oh, that's a lot.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think that's, I can't
Yeah,
see
right.
from here, but I'm pretty
So
sure.
the net area from the
1,200?
assessor's card is 1240.
Of
Oh,
the rear?
Yeah,
Yeah.
1,240.
I got you. That makes sense.
That's probably single story.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, that makes sense.
2 stories.
Okay. Any other questions?
So it's another 1,200 square foot house, half of the.
Yeah, I had something to say.
I promise we'll get you.
Is that the house? Like, can they park under it too?
Maybe.
Theoretically, yeah.
Yeah.
If they sold it right, you could have a
Yeah.
Not with your truck.
Not with your, maybe my car, not yours.
Right.
Okay, I don't have any other questions.
I understand it.
Bob, what do you think?
I guess the the thing I'd wonder about doesn't really concern this board necessarily, but might concern the planning board, would be a stormwater permit. If you take the parking ratios that I think are in the code, you're gonna need at least 4 spaces on site. So if you laid 4 parking spaces into that 22-foot wide area there, unless it were engineered pervious pavement, which is a pretty specific request that the planning board probably would make, again, not this board's purview necessarily, you might be looking at triggering the need for a stormwater management system.
Does the code require it to be paved at all for those parking spaces?
No,
Okay.
no, if it's just sand and, you know,
Right.
Gravel.
Yeah.
sand, beach sand.
Beach sand.
Yeah.
But a gravel driveway, interestingly enough, unless it's got an engineered subbase,
Is considered.
is considered impervious.
Oh, interesting, okay.
That's the, yeah.
All right.
All right.
Just for the record, we have looked at stormwater. The threshold that would trigger it is if we have an increase of 25% in impervious area on that entire lot with a proposed addition, and we don't trip that.
Okay.
And in
No,
this case, if
the
we-
building envelope increase would certainly not trip it. I give you that.
It's the addition that has to be less than 25%, the roof area. And if there was a stormwater permit to be required, that would be administered by the Conservation Commission.
Correct.
Oh, that's right. I beg your pardon. That's exactly right.
Yeah.
Because this will be in their
In their
ballpark.
wheelhouse.
Yep, yep.
All right. Ma'am, and again, just your name and address for the record, please.
Yeah, Debbie Jablonski, and I live at 154 Jericho.
Excellent. Sure.
My driveway, I have an easement that's abuts their property. My house is next to their existing house.
Okay.
Well, I couldn't really hear, but how wide are they coming out onto the existing driveway?
Your house is where? And I'm gonna answer your question. I'm sorry. I got you. You are on the water further towards Front Street from 154.
Right. Yes.
I'm sorry, from
But
one-
I
from
have
one-
a driveway easement
60.
that goes out to the street,
Yep.
which abuts their property.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I got you. They are coming out 7.5 feet from the rear corner of the home,
Right.
probably 5 feet from the bump out
Right.
of the home currently.
Do they have drawings of this house yet?
Certainly, they're right here.
I mean,
Of the actual house?
What it's gonna look like?
I do not believe that they have architecturals yet, or at least we don't have them.
Well, I'm just concerned when they add on to the drive, gonna have to widen the driveway, it's gonna go all the way over to my driveway. Right now, we have a strip of grass,
Yep,
and then it's just gonna be all asphalt or gravel.
sure, but you're speaking of the easement that you have on their land, right?
No, it's not their land. It's the people behind me.
Yeah,
Uh,
I'm guessing it's this, right?
Oh.
On the
then-
other side of the
Then
grass?
that's not on this property,
It
That's
would
over
be-
here.
It would be here.
isn't
Yeah,
it? But we're here.
exactly. Yeah, it's not.
Yeah, so they're not going to be affecting your driveway whatsoever.
No, I don't think they're gonna be affecting it, but
Right.
what's it gonna be, just all hard top, gravel, just down the whole?
It could be, yeah.
Aesthetically pleasing to the neighborhood,
Unfortunately, aesthetically pleasing
is not important.
is,
Not a criteria.
I was going to finish to say, not something that we get to rule on. We in Scituate, for single-family homes, and even for some measure of more than single-family homes, do not have a design review committee. What a home looks like in Scituate is not something that the zoning board or any other board in town has purview over. And that would include what one's landscaping looks like. Unless it violates code, which is hard to do with landscaping. We do not have a say in how nice or not nice in one or more people's eyes a property looks.
Well, it does affect people's property value.
I didn't mean to imply that it doesn't.
And you don't think this is gonna be two huge houses on one lot?
Well, the proposed home that they're about to build would be 1,320 square feet. In our town, if you drive around,
Well, I know,
I
but
don't
that's
think we
pretty
can.
big on two big houses, two 1,300 square feet houses on a lot.
It is it's bigger. It is the 1,300 square foot home that they propose up front is a lot bigger than the 420 square foot home that they propose now. I don't think we can call either of those homes huge. To be honest, even if we added them together and they were one house in Scituate, I don't even think we can call that huge.
No, but it's.
I understand that you may
They're
not,
all elevated and 3 stories high.
as you know, there's almost an argument that that's sort of the rules in that area. I do appreciate that you feel that how this may look wouldn't be better in your eyes, and I'm certain there are some people that will agree with you. But that is not something we're allowed to base our ruling on.
Yeah, but you were talking about storm drainage, so will you will you know if they're gonna be, if you approve it, that you're gonna be hard topping it, or if they're gonna do gravel, or?
So Bob was mentioning that if they are creating an area there that's considered impervious, gravel would certainly be impervious, but there are some other things that might actually be thought of as pervious, which under the code would be considered impervious, that, who needs to hear it? Not the planning board? Concom would need to review that if they trigger a certain threshold of impervious addition to the law. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else with questions? And we are at 162 Jericho Road with this application. No. All right, so just for clarification here on the motion, on this one, we need to find that the proposed addition, I don't think that there's any concern whatsoever that we're creating any new nonconformities. We would have had to talk about that on the last application under the initial plan.
Correct.
Probably would have gotten there on the overall look at it, but that went away. Here, we're not creating any new nonconformities. We are certainly intensifying the lot being too small, and technically, we are not intensifying the front setback nonconformity because of the intricacies of our code with the covered deck is not a home.
It's within that envelope.
But we need to find that the proposed addition is not substantially more detrimental to the surrounding neighborhood. We also need to find, because we are in the floodplain, thank you, I don't want to confuse those with watershed.
Nope.
We need to find that such improvements will be consistent with the National Flood Insurance Program, which of course they will be, otherwise you won't get your building permit. That all improvements must be considered with the provisions of the state building code, which of course they will be, otherwise you won't get your building permit. And that any improvements shall not affect the natural drainage patterns of the water course. We have gotten into that conversation at length here on this board, and I, and some folks that I would consider experts that have been before this board, have said, we could build the Empire State Building. It's not going to affect the drainage patterns of the Atlantic Ocean. Sort of does whatever it wants to do, as we see often here in Scituate. So, have anything else we need to discuss? I think 470.6F
Yep.
is sort of easy.
Yep. right, 48, section 6.
I
I think.
don't think that I can say that this improvement to make a 420 square foot house, it's only one story, into a
It's the second
1,300
story.
square foot house
They're going
that's
up.
2 stories, is substantially more detrimental to the surrounding neighborhood.
Similarly sized houses, similarly sized lots.
I think this lot's a little unique. We got 2 homes on it. If it wasn't 22 feet of space over there and it was 8 or 9 or 7,
Right.
I would definitely want to talk about it a bit more and be more concerned.
Oh, can I just say one more thing?
Yes, ma'am.
The other side of the house, it was grandfathered in, is very close to the property.
Yes.
Do you know how close it is?
1.2 feet at its closest point.
1.2 feet. You
Yes.
don't think going to, that's overtakes being so close to the next property line?
So the 1.2 feet is too close?
No, it's very, the house is very close. I know it's
Yes.
grandfathered in.
Yes.
And to make such an improvement as that is going up another floor, and you don't think that's like,
I understand your point that instead of 1 story being 1.2 feet,
yes.
now we'll have 2 stories, which is 1.2 feet. I think that's a good point. Bob, on that note, I know that a builder, when building that close to the property line, needs to take some added and rather expensive steps with their materials to meet with fire code.
Right.
When they do that on the 2nd floor, do they also need to bring the 1st floor materials into conformance with that, or not?
The first floor of this house being existing construction.
Correct.
That predates zoning and therefore the code.
So no, huh?
It's a good question that I'd have to do a little.
Okay, I understand.
Little looking at. But yeah, you're gonna need a fire rating on that wall, and then you're restricted, if I'm remembering right, to 10% of the wall area as window area, so those.
Meaning you can't exceed that.
You can't exceed
Because of
that.
how close.
Right.
For privacy reasons and
safety.
safety. I think that's mostly privacy. Windows are probably
Well, it's
safer, right?
really fire spread,
Right.
Oh,
because it's assumed the window openings can be
Yep.
a path for fire.
Is that distance to property line or distance to
It's
an adjacent building?
distance to property
Property
line,
line.
it's 5 feet. But we've got lots of buildings that don't meet that criteria.
all right. You know, she makes a good point. It's very close. It's taller again. And now, do we have a home?
Yeah, where's the nearest, how far
We don't.
on that side?
Nothing adjacent to it, it's back.
We don't have a home.
Back
That's
and
a.
to the
It's a
right.
lawn.
It's a lawn.
Yep.
Back and to the left.
Yeah.
Okay.
And those abutters are not here tonight?
She is.
That
Hi.
corner is closed. Right?
So your home, so you have a grassy area on the close edge of this home, and then you're over on the other side? Yeah, So, Paul, while we're on this topic, I think I know the answer to this question, why we're not, well, first, because we're not touching the foundation of the
Right.
existing home. So, we're not moving it.
Right. That envelope's not changing,
Nope.
right?
Nope.
It's just up and back.
But we're going up.
Right.
Yeah.
Can I just say, I mean, when you think about it, when it was originally built, it was
Yes.
just a small house, very low to the ground.
Yes.
And I know it's grandfathered in, but now it's elevated 12 feet, and then you're putting 2 stories on top of it. I mean, and it's only a foot and 2 inches away.
Yes. So, I mean, honestly, the elevation to get into the floodplain is, we really can't consider that anything but a benefit.
Well, yeah, but I'm just saying, it's just over, it's just a foot and 2 inches away from the other property.
Yeah, but
And then 2 stories on top of it. I mean, originally, when it was built, it was just a small, little tiny house.
yeah. Is this on the ground now, or is it elevated now?
Oh, it's elevated.
It's elevated now. Yeah.
Been elevated in the last few years.
So, to be honest,
I mean, that's the best picture of it.
On the, yeah.
we're taking what is essentially a 2-story home now in terms of the viewpoint of the first floor, and we're adding, from a vantage point, a 3rd story on top of it.
Right.
Which, to be honest, to me, makes the addition of the height less of an impact. It's already rather tall.
It is.
Um,
Driven by it?
What's that?
Have you driven by it?
More than once. Yeah, I think, you know, in terms of the height and the closeness, I'm not sure it's that unique in this neighborhood. We have another, the house right behind it isn't set back from the property line, it is the property line. I'm going to make a motion that the board find that the proposed addition shown on the plan drawn by Ross Engineering and dated November 8th, 2021 does not create any new nonconformities, that to the extent it intensifies the existing nonconformities, such intensification is not substantially more detrimental to the surrounding neighborhood, and further that the proposed addition shall comply with sections 470.61 and 2, and that it does comply with section 470.6 after subsection 3.
Right.
There we go.
I second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Just for a point of clarification,
Yes.
the board is issuing a special permit for the construction of the home, but also under 470.6?
That's correct.
Floodplain, okay.
Yes. Yes, I think I left the word special permit out of my motion.
Oh,
there.
you did.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes. All right.
Thank you.
Thanks.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Yeah, 470.6 has always bugged me because we don't have permission to tell people they don't have to comply with 1 and 2 even if we wanted to.
Exactly.
And I still bothers me that that anyone looks to the board to
Say,
figure out
we will require, you will be required to
drainage
comply.
of water courses. We are far from qualified.
All right, Arrowwood. This was gonna be fun.
62 Jericho. All right. Let's do a variance. For a pool. Yeah, I know.
We're back to that.
Yeah, but you're not represented by council. All right. Welcome. This is our 3rd application at 39 Arrowwood Drive in Scituate, requesting a variance in accordance with MGL 48, Section 10, and Section 520.5F of the Scituate zoning bylaw, and any other relief that the Board of Appeals may grant, to allow for the construction of an in-ground pool and retaining wall at 39 Arrowwood Drive in Scituate. And the single-family dwelling is located on a conforming lot and meets all property line setbacks. Let's go to 520.5 real quick. Welcome. Paul, you are still here. 520.5. Oh.
Dimensional regulations.
This is, that involves grading. Interesting. Not
25.
one we see every day.
I tried to find one that, since 2007 to now, I couldn't find one.
Yeah. Bob, we don't see a lot of 520.5F, do we?
No.
All right, well, we'll get into that one. And then, all right. Paul, why don't you go ahead?
It's interesting that we did see one with Mr. Spack
Yeah,
in a
It
different,
is.
in a different context.
yeah.
For the record, my name is Paul Marabito from Ross Engineering Company. And with me to my left are the owners and applicants, and Scituate,
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Folks, I'm sorry, if we could just, if conversations could just occur outside, just so we could hear the applicant. Thank you very much. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
This is, they've recently purchased their home, it's a subject address, and their property contains 1.28 acres. The lot that the house is on is one of the lots in the Arrowwood subdivision that was approved back in the late 90s. That engineering was also performed by a Ross Engineering Company. The current zoning bylaw places the property in the Water Resource Protection District, and there's a provision in there that doesn't allow you to alter slopes, natural slopes that are over 25% in grade. There is an exception to that. Section Section 520 F.12 says that there shall be no grading or earth disturbance activity or vegetation clearing of land having a natural slope of 25%. There's two things we're asking for. We're asking for a variance to install a pool on a slope that has a slope greater than 25%. And also, directly behind the house, the slope drops off, and this area here does have a slope of more than 25%. What they're proposing to do is to flatten the back lawn from the existing, our lawn actually goes to this dark line right now. But from this point, the lawn slopes down to a point where it's more than 25%. When this home was constructed, the fill was pushed out, so the soil on this slope here is not a natural slope of 25%. It was man-made as part of the construction of the home. To the right side of the home, this land area here has never been altered. And they're proposing to put a pool with a retaining wall around it. So we're asking for a variance to do the work in this area here in a slope that's over 25%. What they would do is to install the wall around the pool. This shaded area represents the area that would be over 25%. It's about 750 square feet. We show that on the plan. This area down in here, 713 square feet. And in the narrative, we're asking that the proposed conditions, one would be to expand the lawn at the rear of the house. And again, that's on a slope that is not a natural slope, it was created during the time of construction. And the zoning bylaw is very clear about that. The other issue is that where the pool is, the bylaw does allow the zoning board to issue a variance to do work on that slope that's over 25%. Even though it's in the Water Resource Protection District, but as long as it's not in a Zone A or a Zone 2.
Sure.
The lot is 1.28 acres. If you were to add the 713 and 750 square feet together, that represents about 1.8% of the entire lot. The Water Resource Protection District zoning map pretty much covers that whole west end of Scituate in this area. And I believe the reason for that is because there's a reservoir downstream for Cohasset. But none of the work that we're proposing here would have any impact on the environment or the Water Resource Protection District. And having explained what they're proposing to do, we did mention in our narrative that we believe the relief could be granted as the proposed work will not occur on a slope over 25% that was created as part of the original house construction. And whereas that work is not occurring on a slope over 25%, relief is being sought to the extent the board deems it to be necessary. Second item, we believe that items F1AG inclusive in the Scituate bylaw have been previously met under the Norwood subdivision stormwater management system that's as described in the narrative above. When we did the subdivision, there was a stormwater management system that had to be approved. There was also an operation and maintenance plan that was put into effect that has to be honored by all the homeowners in the subdivision, and that has been done. Also, the variance is being requested due to circumstances related to the topography of the land. Well, while the topography especially affects the subject lot, it does not affect generally the zoning district in which it's located. As such, we believe the variance may be granted without substantial detriment to the public good and without nullifying or substantially degrading from the intended purposes of the zoning bylaw. There is an application that has been filed with the Conservation Commission.
Mm-hmm.
That process has been continued until we finish the process with the zoning board. The rear yard, we have photographs. The rear yard is not that large. At one point, they were thinking of putting the pool in the back, but it doesn't lend itself to that. So the only other option was to go to the right side of the house. And in doing so, that triggered the need for a variance under the sections mentioned in the application. And the reason the board can grant is because it's not in Zone A or Zone 2.
I got you. I have so many questions. The first is, why are you building such a small pool?
Are they building such a small pool?
I was being facetious.
So what we were trying to do is get the max, like, if we go lower, we don't have to, like, receive approval again, right? So we were just trying to maximize.
I got you. I hope you build it that big. It looks awesome. Anyway, this section of the code, and that it puts this decision on the ZBA, bothers me. Because the purpose of this section of the code, and Bob, please correct me if you disagree or if I'm missing something, is to protect the watershed. And it notes that the Board of Appeals can grant a variance if we feel it appropriate. And the only way that I would feel it appropriate is if the variance was granted and the watershed was still protected. And I think I could speak for the rest of the members of the board, are by no means experts on what needs to be done in order to protect the watershed in these scenarios. I'm also certain that something can be done to protect it. Whether or not that's feasible in terms of time or cost or location, I don't know. I'm of the opinion that conservation is probably far more suited to make that determination. My first question for you, and maybe it's a part question for Bob, is conservation, they're before conservation because they're so close to wetlands.
Right.
And conservation is going to review your application to make sure you're not screwing up the wetlands more than is allowed.
Why did they?
It was, It was a circular debate.
I totally understand. I am not expressing frustration
Yeah, no, I
at you
get it,
being
yeah.
here. You're here because you have to be here. You don't file zoning applications for fun.
Right.
My point is, they need a Concom permit in order to build this pool. I would like to suggest that you get your Concom permit, and as part of that, the conservation makes any recommendations for do's or don'ts, or restrictions or added requirements on the grading to us, and then you come back without filing a new application, because we could continue this, and then with that knowledge, we make a decision. Variances overall are a very high standard, a far higher standard than the special permits that we've granted so far tonight. If you can protect the water course and do this grading, I think you qualify for a variance. I don't think that us ruling on whether or not you can do this grading and protect the water course before the Conservation Commission makes their determinations on your project is wise.
Yeah, well, we don't
course.
have the factual, right, underpinnings that we need in order to make the decision under the variance standard.
And I'm concerned, even if we did, we wouldn't know what to make of them.
So
That's
they
right.
specifically requested that we come to you first because that was required for them to make a decision.
Yeah, I'll make that requirement change. I'm a good motivator in such regards. I wield logic like a sword. That doesn't make any sense, right? It seems like maybe you thought that, but you don't have as much power to say that as I do, and that's really the extent of my power. But it doesn't make any sense. Under this section of the code, you're here so we can rule on whether or not you can grade this property because of the slope that exists. Recognizing that if Paul hires counsel and they make an argument if we deny this, they are going to make an argument, I see Walter Sullivan in the back there, that maybe you don't have to be here in the first place because that's not a natural slope. And that might be a good argument. I'd rather we just go through this and make you take whatever steps we need to make you take to protect the water course. And I actually respect that that's the approach you guys are taking too. You have to live next to these wetlands. You don't want to mess them up either. I'd prefer that the conservation, we're going to hear from some more people, I'm sure we'll have some more questions, but I'd prefer that the Conservation Commission, and I'm happy to write whatever letter or speak to the agent or the board if I need to, say it's silly is the best word, to have us rule on this before they rule on, I'm guessing, the dozen things that they need to review to find out if you could do what seems like a substantial amount of construction this close to wetlands and in certain instances within wetlands. If they do that, and if they find that on all the other boxes that they need to check you can, I'm sure they're gonna have some thoughts on the grading as part of that process. And to be perfectly honest, we're going to incorporate those into a variance. If they think that you can build this and protect the watershed, and we denied your variance, it wouldn't be, our denial wouldn't be worth
Based
the
in fact.
paper it's written on,
Right.
because you'd have immediate grounds for an appeal. The zoning board of appeals that knows almost nothing about protecting the environment said, no, we couldn't protect the environment, even though Concom said we could build this. That doesn't make any sense. If they find that you can build this the way you've proposed it now, I'm sure they're gonna have some thoughts on do's and don'ts as to grading. We'll hear that out, and then we'll review your variance application. If they don't find you can build this pool, my guess is your grading needs will at least change.
Right.
So you'd have to come back before us anyway. There's been a little bit of this going around with some of our town boards, and we discussed this recently. Oh no, you gotta go to them first. Oh no, you gotta go to them first. Don't talk to me yet. I think we need to take a practical approach. This surrounds protecting the wetlands, and when it surrounds protecting the wetlands, in this instance, Concom's the best group to speak first.
Just to be clear, there are no other issues that are before us, right? It is just this provision because of the slope under section F, right?
That's
Okay.
correct. Just,
I'm not supposed to speak yet, right?
Not just yet, but we'll absolutely
We'll
get to you.
All right.
the role of the commission is to make sure the wetlands are protected and all the interests that go with it under the Wetlands Protection Act and the local rules and regulations. To simplify it, they have to make sure that the work the applicant's proposing isn't going to kill off the wetlands.
Sure.
And it obviously wouldn't, but I understand your point about the timing on this and the way to go. I mean, we can certainly demonstrate, we do have a botanist involved on the project as well. We can certainly demonstrate under the Wetlands Protection Act that the proposed work, if it were to be constructed, would not have a negative impact on the wetland area, and also that the wetland would not be altered. That's another key component. The commission is also leery about letting people do work within the first 50 feet of a wetland.
I follow you, and to be honest, I'm not sure it makes sense for us to get into it, because you need to get into it with them, and even if you convince us,
You still
if
gotta
you don't
convince
convince them,
It's not gonna happen.
it doesn't really matter that you convinced us. I understand why you're here, and to be honest, the state, chapter 40, our typical practice, doesn't do a good job of putting things in order. But I was at a meeting with some other town officials recently where we came to this conclusion. I think in absence of regulation, common sense is the best guide. And here, I think common sense says that Concom should say everything that they have to say before we hear an application that centers around protecting the environment, to use a broad term. Before we get to you, but maybe in process of getting to you, is anyone from Conservation Commission here? No. Okay. Which is fine. Do we want to go to the public on this one?
Anything more from Bob?
Yeah. Bob?
And then,
I really don't have anything specific to say on the questions that are before the board. We'll need to talk about, if this goes forward, engineering of the retaining walls, things like fence barriers, things like that. But those are down the line.
And you would agree that this bylaw surrounding this grading, I think as it's written right into it, the purpose of it is to prevent runoff into sensitive areas.
Yeah.
And
I mean, presumably the slopes that are 25% and are natural are heavily vegetated.
Right.
So they don't allow silt and runoff and junk to go
Right.
downhill into the wetland areas. And so you don't want to dig those up, because then you've got a danger of having that happen.
that's right. And grading can be bad for the environment. Grading can also be good for the environment. Sometimes Conservation Commission requires grading in order to prevent runoff in other areas. I can't think of anyone less qualified to decide what grading is good and what grading is bad than me. And right, it's Concom. We got to hear from them in order to do this. And I like to show my cards. It's extremely unlikely that we don't defer entirely to them on this issue. Ma'am, and again, just your name and address for the record, please.
Sure. I'm Emily Simmer. I'm at 36 Sherman Drive, and I'm also on the Water Resources Commission for the town. So I
Close.
just
It's
wanted...
closer. That's pretty close to Concom. I didn't mean to interrupt. All right.
No, it's different. But anyway, so I just wanted to bring up another piece of that section F, which is the number 1, where no more than 15% of the area, or 2,500 square feet, shall be rendered impervious unless a system of stormwater management or artificial recharge or precipitation is developed, which it sounds like there might be something like that already. Sounds like this might be going to Concom anyway.
Yep.
But I just wanted to mention that section of the bylaw as well, to have that sort of
Thing.
on the record and in mind.
Thank you.
Sure.
And that was brought up earlier, that there is, when Arrowwood Drive was put in, there is a system of stormwater management in
Yep.
place.
And I'm sorry, what was your name again? Just from Water Resource?
Emily Simmer,
Emily, thank you.
Thank you.
thanks.
Just so the board knows, by way of information, Arrowwood Drive was the first subdivision that the Conservation Commission required to follow the new BMPs that were approved by the state. And we weren't expecting that, neither was the developer, but there was a court-involved process. And out of that came the stormwater management plan, the operation and maintenance manual. That's why I mentioned in my presentation that condition in section F has been met by that stormwater design and the operation and maintenance manual.
Anyone else from the public? No. So
And what,
I,
can we move to continue?
we can move to continue. You, typically, we like to see an applicant request a continuance. And your options are, under the code here, you can tell us, no, we want you to make a decision, and we have to make a decision. Don't do that. And if you continue, we can continue to our next meeting, we can continue to whenever you and we think it's appropriate. And we don't need to renotice. You don't need to file another application or pay another fee. It has to be February. Why? I'm not disagreeing, I'm certain you're right, I just don't understand.
Time-wise, publications and everything by January.
Right, do we need to
Don't need publication.
re-publicize a continuance?
Yeah.
I don't think we do.
We should
No,
continue.
I think we could just add it to the docket.
Put your conservation-
Um,
And when is conservation?
The idea being that anyone who's interested in this was notified about this
they could have
application.
come today.
Had the opportunity to hear this, and then that's where, yeah.
So I completely understand and respect everyone's desire to
Sure.
continue. But the whole issue here is if we continue to continue
Yep.
everything,
Yep,
we're just not gonna move anywhere. And so we've had 3 continuations with, I'm not saying to make a ruling.
no, I
right?
understand.
completely
I wanna
agree.
hear you out.
But so the next, I think we've continued with Conservation Commission 3 times now, because they were waiting to get this on the docket. And so it's just like this whole, do we know when the next Conservation Commission meeting is?
I don't, I think someone might.
I'll look at it.
Or, so Anthony, I guess
Yep.
what the ask would be is, can we decide here today before we leave on, what we can get from this board to give to conservation so that they don't push us back again and
Sure.
that they can make a ruling?
I need to reach out to the Conservation Commission
Amy.
and to Amy and express my opinion that, no, we're not going to go first. This is a Conservation Commission issue, and we need them to hear it and move the process forward. And the zoning board's decision on this is certainly secondary to Concom's, and we prefer that it be educated by any concerns or other issues that Concom sees. And I
And
can back
propose-
that up by saying, otherwise, I'm gonna move that we're gonna grant the variance and not consider any concerns that they have, and I think that would be negligent on all of our parts. Yes,
Concom meets on the 20th.
Concom meets on the 20th, and you've continued to that hearing in hopes of getting a
I think it was
variance tonight?
It was indefinite until we get
They
a
gave you
ruling.
an indefinite continuance?
Continuation, until
I
we
am-
get a ruling.
I
here.
on
am
the
so,
20th.
Walter,
They
if
asked
you
us
wouldn't
not to
mind some free legal advice for the board, are there constructive improvals when it comes to Conservation Commission?
I think I'd like to say no comment on that.
Okay. If I wanted to perform some free legal research to clean up some stuff going on in town, might I find some ground somewhere in the case law that someone somewhere got a constructive approval because Concom gave an indefinite continuance?
They just asked us not to put something on the docket without,
Sure.
we respect, listen, we don't have to waste any more
So,
time. We get
listen,
it. We'd like to ask for a continuance.
I do not enjoy giving more time to the zoning board than I already do. but I hate wasteful procedure within my town even more. So I'm on your side now. That does not mean I endorse Concom approving your project, because I know nothing about what they have to review. I endorse and I am for you forcing Concom to come to a decision. I'm going to get to the bottom of that.
So if we
And,
could, so if we could just extend this or request an extension, whatever. Continuation.
So what I'd like to do is continue this hearing until the next meeting after we get a decision from Concom on your project.
Okay.
And let us know, let the office know immediately when that happens, and we will get you on immediately thereafter.
Yep, and because we don't need that notice, we meet once a month. But it's, as soon as they give you a decision, you'll have the next hearing, and we'll have the information of their hearing. And I will reach out to them to discuss that. And if they need to hear anything from the board, I will make myself available to them for that discussion, either at their meeting, their next meeting's on the 20th. Is that Monday?
5:30, they start
Yeah.
early. And
Six.
actually, I think they're all Zoom meetings, right?
Yeah.
They're on.
So I'll zoom on in, but I'm gonna reach out to Concom in advance of that.
Okay.
Yeah.
They are meeting Monday night, this coming Monday.
Sure.
How much is on the docket there?
Yeah, I don't know if we can even
Do
get
you know how
on
much is
that.
on the docket? We're not gonna get on there.
So, could one of you do me a favor, and I will give you the best contact information for me? Could you tell me who I need to nag? And I know Amy by name and reputation. I don't have her contact information handy. We can do that after we continue. We can do that right after the meeting. You can email it to me, and I will nag them. Things get built or they don't get built when we have substance for them. I don't want to see anything delayed unnecessarily, by accident, on purpose, whatever it is. So I'm going to make a motion to continue this to the next meeting that arrives subsequent to a ruling by the Conservation Commission.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 All
Thank you,
right.
guys.
Thank you. We'll be in touch. So, hang on one second.
I've got one more meeting here,
Okay.
so I'll be in touch.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Good luck on the next one.
All right.
Thank you. All right. Yeah, we're not,
That's this. Making a factual determination, but we need all the.
Come on. Okay. No one in town is better served if me and you are the loudest people on an environmental issue. All right. We're gonna go to our fourth application,
Final.
brought by Senthil Kumar. I apologize if I'm mispronouncing that. As trustee of the 322 CJC Realty Trust at 155 Main Dunstable Road, Suite 160 in Nashua, requesting a special permit or finding in accordance with MGL 48, Section 6, and any other relief that the Board of Appeals may grant to allow the applicant to have 2 lots and a driveway with the pre-existing non-conforming structures at 322 Chief Justice Cushing Highway. Hi there.
Good evening. For the record, I'm Walter Sullivan, the attorney for Mr. Kumar. With me is Paul Marabito. We're seeking a 48 Section 6 finding, as indicated in the public notice. What I thought I would ask Paul to do is sort of take the board through this large tract of land with these pre-existing structures, and then we'll explain in detail what it is we're looking for. Please.
The applicant recently purchased the property that's outlined on the plan here. And what it contained was a single-family home here and 2 outbuildings that were also being used as living quarters. And there was an existing 3-car garage here and a small shed behind it. There's also an existing common driveway shown in light blue that comes into Route 3A to a circular area here, and that services the three dwelling units shown on the plan. The existing home is in the process of being renovated. There's been no changes to the driveway. It's fairly distinct. The land slopes from Route 3A up, and this area here is really level, and then the right side here slopes off in this direction, and this area here slopes back to the eastern corner of the site. There are no wetlands on the site. This plan is based upon a survey that we performed several years ago. We've been involved with this property for probably 10 to 15 years. And a woman that lived here, she was elderly, she eventually sold it, and it was purchased by our client. And so working with Walter and our client, we prepared this plan showing that these structures, this existing dwelling unit would be on its own lot, we call it Lot 1, and Lot 2 contains the other dwelling unit with a 3-car garage and a shed. This lot we created is a conforming lot, in that it has 100 feet of frontage and 175 feet of lot width through the house, which we show on the plan. So the relief that's being requested is for the structures on lot 1 and 2. We also have a zoning chart here that's required in your application requirements as well. So I think for that, I wanted to let Walter continue.
Are you running in between these two buildings right here? Is that line in between these two buildings right here?
Yes.
All right.
So, under Chapter 41, Section 81L, it's kind of similar to the A&R process, which is before the planning board, and we will be going to the planning board next. We will be submitting a plan that allows us to divide a line similar to the Form A process, as long as we have 20 feet of frontage, to put each residential structure on its own lot. So that's what we're doing. The next process is to seek from the ZBA a finding that we're not creating any nonconformities, we're not changing anything in the structures, we're just putting them on their own lot, and that we're continuing the allowed use, which is residential, and that this all pre-exists zoning. And as we've indicated in the materials we've submitted, having gone through the archives, all of these structures were built in the 1920s, which are before zoning. And I have the resident expert on pre-existing grandfather use, because Paul is grandfather protected, and Paul has done work for the prior family out there. So he's aware of the consistent use of residential. So all we're trying to do is divide the lines, but what we're seeking from the ZBA is a finding we're not creating any nonconformities, and that the existing driveway, which is the only driveway that's ever granted access for the use on those structures, also is consistent with the use and is permissible. So Lot 1 contains the main house, which is a rather large house that's under construction. Lots 2 and 3 have existing rental properties that have been rented by the prior owners for many, many years. And so
I'm sorry, the smallest lot has the largest.
House.
So lot 3 on your plan?
oh, I'm sorry, Lot 3, and so that conforms,
Okay,
so we
that's
don't
fine.
need any relief.
I'm sorry, it conforms?
It does.
To what?
Well, so Lot 3, Mr. Chairman, is this property right here, and it conforms with.
Lot 3 conforms with everything. That one's, I got no problems with that
Right,
one.
so that's
The other
what-
two are freaking me out.
Right, so under 81L,
Okay.
these all exist, and they pre-exist on all of these structures.
Yeah.
The structures.
Right, so what we're doing, sort of similar to the Form A process, is dividing lots that allow us to put each structure on its own lot.
Okay, but we're creating a lot of nonconformities.
I would suggest the nonconformities exist.
Okay, so let's start with the top. In Scituate, we're not allowed to have lots with 20 feet of frontage.
Right. So, but under 81L, we're allowed to, see, it exists already. So our argument is, all we're doing, and I think this is the planning board determination, is putting a lines on what already exists. Because
So
the
you don't
theory
need-
behind, Mr. Chair, the theory behind 81L, I think, is it's better and less non-conforming that all of these individual residential structures be on their own lot.
Not sure I agree, but maybe it's not important that I agree. So just to clarify, you don't need relief from this board for the 20-foot frontage.
No, we need that from the planning board.
Okay, right, that's their problem.
So then we say to you that by doing this, we're not creating any more nonconformities.
I will, what I'd like to do is, we'll look at nonconformities as we find them, and we'll just address them one by one.
Yeah.
The lot frontage on the 2 lots you're proposing to create, you don't need relief from us, you're saying. So, great, so we're not gonna rule on that. Lot area, do you need relief from us on those?
So I don't need relief. I need a finding that simply by drawing a line and continuing the residential use, which is allowed.
Right.
And not changing the structures, is not creating any new nonconformities.
So, hang on.
We have 3 residential structures on one lot.
Right. You gotta, if I had a lot with what's required in this zone for frontage, 100 feet?
Yes.
If I had 200 feet of frontage on a lot, and we need to be 40,000 square feet here, and that lot had 40,500 square feet of area, and I created one conforming lot, and then I got 3 more lots out of it that had 1 foot of frontage, and those lots had 10 square feet of area. Would you still be arguing that you weren't creating any nonconformities?
81L doesn't allow you to do that. It allows you.
Anyone else says it has to be 20. It has to be at least
It's at least 20.
Okay, so let's say I made them have at least 20 feet of frontage, and they had 300 square feet of area. Would you still be arguing that you weren't creating any nonconformities?
I would argue that, yeah, that I think the policy behind 81L is that by putting these structures on their own lot, it creates less nonconformity. Yes.
Okay.
And I think here, so by making Lot 3, the larger house.
Yep.
Conforming and putting that all by itself, okay, so that's in compliance, and then that just leaves
Three's great.
these 2 other residential uses that pre-exist zoning. And so
Sure,
the
so
planning
lot-
board authorizes us to put the lines through there and put them on their own lot. We're changing nothing. We're not making them bigger. We're not doing anything.
Right, but the planning board, did you go to the planning board yet?
No, we're going there next.
Okay. And we've already established that I'm against them telling you that they're not gonna talk to you until you talk to us, because somebody's gotta rule first.
They haven't told us that.
So,
Yeah.
on the off chance they might, I'm very willing to hear you out and rule on this tonight. But I see frontage as a nonconformity that we're creating with this. If you need us to rule, if you need us to find that the frontage of these lots isn't a nonconformity, you need to convince 2 out of the 3 of us that that isn't a nonconformity, and I don't know what you're gonna say to get me.
Well, and
We-
I also, and again, whether the frontage issue sort of is superseded by what the planning board does, I have a problem between Lot 2 and 3, because you're now going to have 2 dwellings, you're going to have a new lot line, you have 2 dwellings that are each 3.7 feet from a lot line.
Lot 1 and 2.
Like 1 and 2, yeah.
Yeah, so there's a new nonconformity.
Right.
We have,
So there's a pre-existing, if you want to go in Lot 1, right, you have a pre-existing 17-foot distance on, call it the left-hand side, right? And
that's
it's-
probably allowed, right?
That's probably, well, and it's either allowed or pre-existing, right? I think this is.
Yep,
Where's
yep.
this, R1?
15 is required.
Yep,
15 is required, okay,
But we have-
good. So that's
we have this-
allowed, and that's fine. But that's where I'm having the problem. I don't worry about the existing garage, right? I don't, obviously, Lot 3 is fine. That line, right, I mean, you're okay in the back, right? That line, right, how is that not a new nonconformity?
That creates.
It's a nonconformity, and in my opinion, so is frontage, lot area, and lot width.
So my response is, it's a nonconformity to have 3 residential structures on one lot.
Nope, I'm not worried about that nonconformity.
I understand it, so.
That one I'll give you.
Okay,
I'm with you on that.
where our argument is, and I think this is the policy behind 81L, is by separating them and putting them on their own lot, there's good reasons to do that, even though you can, I mean, there would be no purpose for 81L if you could make everything comply. It would just be a Form A.
Yeah. If we were, yeah.
And I mean, we obviously will be seeking the planning board. This is a bilateral approach to permitting, and so
Sure.
we will certainly be making the same argument to the planning board, and we can, we can buttress that with what their thoughts are, because I think that's what 81L allows.
81L, that's a philosophical argument that goes back to the reasoning for a statute that is a complex statute when it comes to subdivision, absolutely. And that's an argument that I feel like we could go round and round on as it comes to frontage. You might even be able to say that it's an argument that we could also go round and round on as it comes to lot area. But that's a harder argument, because 81L specifically mentions frontage. 81L definitely doesn't specifically mention creating lots that are less than the minimum lot area required in the jurisdiction where you're doing it. I say definitely, I'm betting. I'm not sure. I didn't review 81L with respect to that before this hearing, but I'd put good money on that wager. I would bet my house on 81L not saying that you don't have to comply with setbacks. So if you're here for us to rule that this isn't creating any new nonconformities, nothing could be further from the truth in my mind.
So it's a 2-part process for this permit, right? So that it's similar to the Form A process for the planning board, and they endorse it.
Yep.
That, okay, you have a right to put the lines through there.
Okay.
So if the planning board says, yeah, go ahead and do that, and we do it, and then we come to you and you say, no, we're not gonna give you a special permit.
Yep.
Then it makes the whole exercise sort of pointless. And
Well, it makes it pointless for the applicant.
absolutely. Well, you've got other things to do.
I'm not just trying to be a smart aleck.
Neither am I.
It doesn't make it pointless for us. We're saying no because that's absolutely what we intended.
I think other boards and other towns have found that the policy behind putting each structure, when they have been used for a long period of time, like is the case here.
Sure.
On their own lot, outweighs nonconformities. And
outweighs.
And I'm not suggesting that you feel, or this board feels that way. I'm just saying that's why other towns have found.
Okay. So now you're talking about us saying that we're okay with these nonconformities, is the point that I feel like you just made, which is an entirely different question than the first request I heard from you was for us to create a finding that you're not creating any new nonconformities. If you're asking us to say we're not creating any new nonconformities, my response is, get the hell out of here. What are you talking about?
Well,
we're not even gonna have a meaningful discussion on that. If you wanna talk about that these nonconformities on separate lots are better for the code in the town than the way it is now, that probably warrants some more discussion. But can you get what you need from the planning board if we're okay with the nonconformities, or do you need us to say that there aren't any?
I don't think we were looking for any decision from this board. I think we were looking for direction before we go to the planning board. Because, Paul and I are looking at this and we're saying, hey, this is one way to do it. There's other ways that you can continue this use the way it's been done. And it struck us that it was more beneficial for our client to separate them. I mean, you could obviously do condominium, or you could just keep it the way it is as grandfather protected, right? But our client thought the idea of putting them all on a separate lot and being able to alienate them that way was the better way to do it. So we approached it from, okay, under 81L, you could put a plan before the planning board. In my opinion, they would have to endorse it. But that doesn't do anything for you if the zoning board of appeals isn't going to give you a special permit, finding that the public benefit of having each property on its own separate lot is better than having 3 separate structures on one.
So here's the thing. In order to create these lot lines without demolishing those homes, I'm pretty certain you need a variance from us.
I'm sorry, so you're saying we put the line in, and then, as Mr. Zixis says, because of the
Creating
setback,
new nonconformities that didn't exist before.
which is
you
why
put
I
the
would
line.
never just take an 81L and record it. Right.
Yeah. You need a variance from us that I can't imagine how you meet the standard.
Right.
Because we need to look at the lot before you needed the variance, and the lot before you needed the variance is 100 and something thousand square feet.
I can't create my own hardship.
No. So, and that's putting aside lot, even if we're just talking about the houses. So say we're just talking about setbacks and lot width. I think you need variances on all of those things. And, yeah, I don't see any avenue, even a logical avenue that I disagree with, where you need anything less than a variance for zoning to create these lots
This way.
this way.
Be clear.
If, to be honest, even if you were knocking those houses down, I don't see how you don't need a variance to create a buildable lot.
We're not changing anything on the footprint. And I'm not trying to be combative, but
I don't think.
taking your argument all the way out, there would really be no purpose for anybody to come here with an 81L. Because the
So
reason you do 81L is to draw lines on a lot that you can't make conform. Otherwise, it would just be a Form A.
Yeah, but it's not a lot that you can't make conform at all. 81L speaks to frontage. And
But I mean, to
speaks
save
other
the
things.
structures, we have to do it this way.
81L wasn't designed to defeat lot requirements in every way under a town zoning code. 81L was designed to create some flexibility. It wasn't designed so people could create 20-foot frontage lots that were too small and not wide enough.
I thought this was very modest.
I don't begrudge anyone going after profitability, but the reason we're trying to do it this way is because separate lots are more profitable than condominiums.
Sure.
And if that was my only problem with it, I would feel compelled to give you your relief, because profitability isn't just allowed under the law and the code, it's generally encouraged. But in order for your client to get the most profitable option here, I think they need more than one variance from this board.
Okay.
And I would think that even if they were knocking down those 3 houses.
Yeah, but that's obviously not gonna be the plan.
That's not the plan. Great, good.
That's okay.
Yeah, and I can't throw you back to the planning board without saying that out loud, because I just sort of chastised Concom for doing it.
I heard you, and I appreciate that. No, we came here first for this reason.
Yeah. I don't see an avenue, and I'm a guy that approves everything, right? I
I don't know
don't,
if that's true.
I don't, it's not, but it doesn't stop some people from saying
that,
it.
yeah. Yeah, not with this, there may be a way to do something along those lines, but not, I can't get there.
Do you see,
I mean,
it's more than one variance, right?
no, it's more than one, but yeah. I mean, there's a theoretical way to do some of this, if this is one line.
The 2 of them
Two
together.
of them together, right, because this is gonna be conforming, and the question is, what do you do here for the front? Right? But that actually leaves this
Right. If it was 2 lots, then you have a nuanced lot with wondering, is it? And you got 40 feet of frontage, which
And
I'd
maybe
have
it's
to
a
get
little
back
bit
into
different.
81L to see if it. There's ways to do it where you would definitely need less variances and maybe not need a variance.
Again, depending on what.
But this way, there's variances on top of variances.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's
our
advice. Does he want a ruling?
Well, right. So quickly, I guess, since I feel like we all know where this is going, Bob, what do you think?
I mean, are we insane up here?
I'm the same, kind of, no. I mean, I just can't see it. And I almost can't see the reason for it. But, if profitability is the goal, I think there's a way to make this profitable and legal at the same time.
Yeah, I think if I was a broker and I held my license at one time, it'd be a lot more fun to sell these as 3 single-family homes. People pay more for single-family homes in
Right,
Scituate
but the
than they
homes
do.
themselves, I don't know if you've seen pictures of.
Yeah, we have them. Yeah, they're not.
They're very modest.
Yeah, they're, right.
I mean, they simply are,
Cottages.
they are cottages.
Well, no one's saying, and this is not why I'm against this application in this place, but if we allowed these things as pre-existing non-conforming and created these lots, then they could come back for Gale special permits. Arguably. And whether or not I think that's a good idea has no bearing on what I think of this application, to be perfectly honest. I do understand the motivation. It makes it a lot. It's definitely a little bit more valuable than making this into a condo.
I would think, but in terms of knocking the buildings down, if I'm the buyer, the first thing I'm gonna do is knock the building down.
Yep. Yep. And come to us for a raise and reconstruct permit on your lot that's too small.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's why I can't see approving creating a new lot in Scituate that's too small. Our code, I think, has a rather generous, by our code standard, provision allowing people to create 50-foot frontage lots. I don't believe that 81L was designed to create 20-foot frontage lots. I think that was a minimum in that section of the code, but I don't even think that argument matters, since there are much more black and white issues with this application. Members of the public, I'm guessing not a lot of you were here in support of this. Keeping in mind it's almost 9 o'clock, and I know at least some of you are extremely tired and you worked very hard today. And if we could try to avoid going over everything that we just said, but I'm sure that you have some thoughts that we haven't gotten to, so I do want to hear from you. Yes, sir, and just your name and address, please, for the record.
Phil Struzero, 107 Setback Trail.
Yes.
What is the zoning lot size for this area right now? I believe it's an acre?
Yes,
Yeah,
that's
40.
correct.
Roughly.
It's
40,000 square feet.
What is the square footage of this parcel of property?
The overall square footage of this parcel is probably
120.
128,834?
100 what?
128,834, so roughly
That would be
3
three
acres.
lots.
What's that?
That would be 3 conforming lots.
Well, no, because there's a lot of other things that go into a conforming lot. Yeah, so you need frontage, you need width, you need yada, yada, yada.
So
Yeah.
my thought process was if you can give him 20 feet, or the project, I'm sorry, I don't mean to put him on this.
No, no.
You can give the project 20 feet of frontage, then I'll be back next week and you give me 20 feet of frontage and I'll turn my shed into a dwelling. Is that?
I don't think you think it's quite that simple, but I understand your point.
Right.
And that's sort of what we're saying?
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyone else? Yes, sir.
Brett Woodis, 19 Scituate Trail. Definitely going to take a quit while ahead approach here,
Sure.
understanding the time and the way that the tide seems to be flowing. Just wanted to say that I'm one of many people here from the Scituate Trail neighborhood and the surrounding area, and we're here because we're concerned about this property that's quite large, historic, and its use is going to dramatically impact our neighborhood and the quality of our enjoyment of our own properties. This property sits up above our neighborhood, as mentioned in the initial presentation. It slopes down into the backs of a number of our properties, and then slopes kind of southeast over towards the First Herring Brook, which then flows down into our water supply. So any changes to this property in terms of driveways, parking areas, additional roofs, patios, anything like that is going to impact the water flow through our neighborhood in a way that's certainly going to be detrimental and substantially detrimental to the surrounding neighborhood. So I just wanted to make that point, and I also just wanted to, there's a lot of people still here. We're all, we're concerned, we wanted to find out information. I don't think anybody was coming in here planning to just out of hand oppose the proposal. I certainly understand people buying property and wanting to develop it, and profitability was mentioned, completely understand. But I mean, just looking at the map, I mean, these lot lines are completely tortured. I mean, there's no frontage, there's no access to the rear of the property is really forced, and it seems to fly in the face of what this board is for, what zoning is for, and the requirements that are in place. And I just wanted to express that as a board tonight. I won't take up any more time.
Sure. To try not to go too far down the rabbit hole, but just, I try to put myself in the abutter's shoes, and this is a funky plan. You look at these lots with what looks like a maze. It looks like, oh my God, what are they gonna do? What are we gonna have 7 families back here? You do want to keep in mind that under the code, if they wanted to knock down these houses, they could get 2 huge lots in there with 2 huge houses under the code. Like
By right.
10,000 square foot houses under our code currently. And they would need very, very little relief from this board in order to do it. And so, to be honest, and I used to live on Old Oak and Bucket and walk down, I'm not as familiar with the neighborhood now or this property as I was when I lived there several years ago, but you might want to think about working with them, because this plan, honestly, might be better for you than what somebody else. Maybe you want 2 mega homes in there, but maybe you don't, and I don't know, and I don't proclaim to be familiar with the feel of the neighborhood, but they absolutely could, if profitability was their only way to go, put in 2 gargantuan lots and gargantuan homes. That is 128,000 square feet of land, and they would absolutely be allowed to put in 2 lots. You'd have an 80,000 square foot lot and a 40,000 square foot lot. And though that size lot allows for a very large home, where we're looking at all upland here. So this may not even be the devil, this may be your best friend if they decide to put this much land in Scituate on the market. So you do want to keep that in mind. I think that's the thing that I've said tonight that has been most pleasing to Walter by a long margin. Okay. Anybody else? Are we withdrawing, or are we continuing,
What I would ask,
or?
I would like to ask the board for a continuance so that we can look at potential revisions and also determine what we're going to do with the planning board. We don't need a long continuance. we'll make our decision very quickly.
Sure. It's a complicated question. I would say take as long as you need. Right. Motion to continue, is next meeting even feasible? It does not need to be for our purposes.
If we could ask for February?
Yep. Yeah. Motion to continue this application to our February meeting, the third, February's a joke. Are there even 3 Thursdays? There's gotta be, right?
There's 3. There's
Second.
no more than 3.
Can you do 28 with 14 and? No.
Second.
You can do it. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Thank you very much.
Thank
Happy
you.
holidays to everybody.
Thank
Happy
you.
holidays, Merry Christmas.
Too.
Is the yellow one the new one?
The yellow one's the newest one. I think I have 2.
I got like 4 or 5 of these. MGL 81 out. It's a subdivision.
Yeah.
It's actually just a section.
Yeah, just 1 second. And folks, please, we got like 2 more minutes. You're welcome to stay here and just keep it down, or you know what? Please just stay here and keep it down, because if you go out in the hall, you're gonna make a bunch of noise, and then I'm gonna have to close all the doors. Motion to approve was that the November minutes that you circulated?
Yeah.
You're on top of your stuff.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion to adjourn.
Motion, second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you.
Merry Christmas, everybody.
Can we shut off HAL 3000? I think it's off.
You're up, Brandon. Good meeting.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Seth.
I urge you need an opinion from